So I will fight as long as I can and do what I can to fight for myself and the rest of Canada, for the other people that need these surgeries as well.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Alberta Roundup. I am joined by a very special guest today. I have Sheila Annette Lewis with me on the program. We have been following her story very closely on the show over the last couple of months, and I am very excited to have the opportunity to interview her. And I know that you guys are going to be interested in hearing more about her case. Sheila, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Rachel.
So Sheila, we know that your efforts to basically get back on the organ donor transplant list in Canada have been stymied pretty much at every turn. You obviously have taken this up to the Alberta Appeal Court, and then you even sought to have the Supreme Court of Canada hear your case. We know now that they turned that down. I have to say, were you surprised when you heard that they were not going to hear your case? Did you expect that it would be taken up to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, I was really surprised, and I was surprised that the Supreme Court acted on it so quickly as well. I was expecting it to take a while for them to make a decision on my case.
And were you given any details as to why your case was rejected, or just a flat, no, we will not hear your case?
For the Supreme Court of Canada, it just come back that they did not want to hear the case. It was denied, and that was it. We weren't given any more details. They just denied to hear the case.
So since that happened, there's also been another very positive development in your story. Now we have learned that a U.S. hospital is actually willing to give you the organ transplant that you need. You said that it was a hospital in Texas. I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to share some details with us about which hospital that is and how you actually got in touch with them and were able to get on their transplant list despite being an international citizen.
Well, we called different organizations in the United States. They kind of helped in some of it. We also did a lot of cold calls. The people behind the scenes that are helping me, they did a lot of cold calls themselves. And then we came across, this was on the list that was given to us by the United States of some possible hospitals that might be willing to do it. So when we contacted Texas, they said they didn't see any reason why not, but we would have to, work on it and figure out from then if I was even a possible candidate. So that's what the stage where we're at now. They've already told us how much it would cost for the testing to get done to see if I was still healthy enough, my organs were healthy enough to even get on the donor list. So I sent all the medical records down to them, and that's what they're reviewing now. They also created a file for me, of course, at the hospital. I also was speaking to a doctor yesterday on Zoom from the Texas hospital, and they have a board meeting on Thursdays. So on Thursday, tomorrow, they will present my case in front of the board, and we're going to go from there. And depending on what the board says tomorrow, with the information that they have, depending on the next steps.
Okay, so it sounds like Thursday will be a pretty big day for you in terms of getting that answer. Meanwhile, they're also reviewing your documents. We know that currently you're in the process of fundraising 100,000 USD to get that first step of testing that you need. When we spoke on the phone, you said you had received testing when you were in Canada, but they stopped testing you about 2 years ago when you refused to be vaccinated against COVID-19. We're looking at the fundraiser now. It's at about $87,000, just over as of Wednesday morning when we're filming, and it's been climbing pretty steadily over the past week from what I can tell. So I feel fairly confident that you'll have that first 100,000 that you need for testing pretty soon. Once you have that money, are you able to begin testing in the States right away, or do they still have to kind of continue looking through your documents, and is there going to be more of a wait period?
Well, we don't know that answer at all. It all depends on what the board is going to say. They could, like they told me, they could come back with a date fairly quickly because of the progression of my disease, of course. So it all depends on what the board is going to say. They are a smaller hospital than what we'd like, because being a smaller hospital, they do less transplants, of course. So, like he said, depending on what we're looking for and what we want, if we went with a bigger hospital, we would have, they would have more transplants a year. Um, so there's a lot to take into consider. It's not just jump on the bandwagon on the first one. But at least we're getting somewhere with it at least. And they do give us positive reviews, of course. So we just have to wait and see. It's a waiting game, right?
For sure. And you've just mentioned that you're waiting to hear from the hospital. They could give you a date fairly quickly. Does that mean that you feel fairly confident that they will approve your case?
I'm not going to feel confident about anything until I'm there. When I'm there, I'm going to be confident. But I feel really good. I really do about it. But the old saying goes, nothing is hatched until you crack the egg. So I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched. I've done that in Canada, and look where it got me. I was really pumped. They put me on the transplant list, on the donor list, excuse me. They put me on the donor list. They said I was ready. I had a very, very healthy body, and look where that got me. And I was pumped to go. I did all the physio for it. I did everything they asked me to do, like everything. The only thing I didn't was the experimental vaccine. So just because somebody tells you something doesn't mean it's actually going to happen, I guess. Canada proved that, and which is sad because Canada is our country, and who better to believe than our own doctors, our own government.
Sure. When we talk about this sort of uphill battle and you not wanting to be certain of something before you're actually there, obviously you have a very significant amount of money that you need to fundraise. I mentioned that initial $100,000 for testing, but afterwards, I believe it's another $500,000 that you need to fundraise for the actual transplant itself, and that's of course in American dollars. So a very, very significant amount of money in Canadian dollars. It seems like people have been very supportive and very receptive to donating to your cause so far, as I mentioned.
They're amazing. Like they really are. Canadians are really, really, really coming through, and we're also getting donations from the United States as well. So it's amazing the movement is. I never ever dreamed we would even get to where we are today. I really didn't. But Canadians are really, really coming through, and sometimes it's like it's powerful, it's overwhelming, and I sit back sometimes and it really touches the heart. It really does, because Canadians are very caring and giving, and they're just overall great people, and you can't thank them enough. There's just no possible way you could ever thank them enough for what they're doing. And my hope for this transplant, and my hope was to get a policy overturned, and that's what was the purpose of the courts, was to overturn the policy so many more Canadians would be able to get the transplant that I hoped I would be able to get. It wasn't just about me, and it's still not about me. It's about all Canadians, and all Canadians are suffering the same way I am. And we can't overlook that. It's not just about one person, right? But they're forcing a hand where they're making it just one person, because I'm not winning. That's the problem with the courts. I'm not winning it. The question is why? And I have natural immunity and very high levels of it, more so than most people, they say. And to require still a booster, like they're saying, why am I still required to get a booster when I have natural immunity? It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense, especially with all the data out. You know, Rachel, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person that knows everything that's going on with this vaccine. It's too much information out now, way too much. A lot of people are injured. A lot of people have passed away. A lot of families were affected. How many families do they gotta destroy before somebody steps up and stops this? It's, Canada's in a sad place right now.
Another question that I had about your case is that, you know, the organ that you actually need, as well as the names of the doctors that you were working with here in Alberta, as well as the hospital that you were working with, all of that is under a publication ban. The court really sought to protect those doctors for the decision that they made in denying you this organ transplant. Has that been difficult for you to process? Has it been difficult to explain to people exactly what's going on when there's so much that news outlets can't cover?
Of course it is, because it's really sad. I mean, it wasn't enough that they come back and they said they had a policy. Didn't have a policy when they made this. They sat around a table. It was said right to me. I have it on record. They said, the doctor had said to me on the phone, on the Zoom, that we have to make a decision. We have to sit down as a team and we have to go over whether we're going to ask or make people that need transplants, a life-saving transplant, to get the vaccine. So in a couple of weeks after that, they got back to me and they said, we made a decision. They made a decision. They didn't have a policy. So when I forced their hand and I asked them for the policy, a copy of it, they refused it. Then I wrote them a letter in November and I said, there's not a policy. It is recommended, strongly recommended that I get the vaccine, but it wasn't policy. And that was in November 2021. So what happened? Bang. All of a sudden there was a policy. They come up with a policy. But when they first told me they made the decision, it was in March. But in November the same year, they finally got a policy because I was asking to see a copy of it. So it's sad that the courts put the gag order on me, which they wanted, the doctors wanted, and asked for, because it was to silence me. But look at it the other way. If they were speaking the truth about everything, which I know now they weren't, through testimony and what was ignored in the courts, it's really sad that they had to put a publication ban on me, or a gag order, whatever we want to call it. If they were speaking the truth, what did they have to worry about?
Well, I have to say that their attempts to silence you certainly have not been successful. That kind of brings me to my last question here. Something that I've been so struck by in this story, and I know that has really resonated with my audience as well, is your resilience, your ability to continue pushing through this and to fight for what you know is right, despite really being up against all odds. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit. Have you found this difficult? Have you wanted to really just give up at any points? And what has kept you pushing through?
There's lots of times. There really is. There's lots of times that, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking and it's quiet and I'm by myself. You know, it's late at night and I can't sleep for one reason or another. And yeah, I think about just, that's it, enough is enough. But what's that going to do? It's not going to get me nowhere, and it's not going to get anybody else anywhere. But at the same time, the truth needs to come out. And if I just stop it all, which they want me to, these doctors, they want me to go away. Like they used to ask me in the Zoom calls at the end, they would say when they called, "Oh, you're still hanging in, I see," because I answered the phone. It's like, yeah, I'm still hanging in. But they want me to go away. They want to silence me. And no, it ain't gonna happen. So I will fight as long as I can and do what I can to fight for myself and the rest of Canada, for the other people that need these surgeries as well. But yes, there's times it gets tough, like really tough, especially when it's hard to breathe. And there's a lot of times when I exert myself, when I get up to do something, even with the third machine, it's tough. It's tough to keep going sometimes, but I have to keep fighting. I never was one to give up before, so I'm gonna start now.
Well, Sheila, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing a little bit of your story and your journey with us. I know that me and my viewers, we are behind you 100%. And I know a lot of people were really excited to be able to support your fundraiser, and we will continue to follow your story with interest. And you'll just be in our prayers, and we are rooting for you 100%. So thank you so much for coming on.
Do you have the fundraiser? Do you have the fundraiser website?
Yes, we have the fundraiser website, and it's been linked in my previous shows, and we'll link it in this episode below as well.
Okay, great. Okay, then, Rachel, thank you very much for having me on your show today. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that is helping with this movement and sending prayers and, have support for me and inboxing me. I get a lot of them. And I try to do as many as I can every day. But thank you for your support, Rachel.
You're most welcome. Okay, we'll chat with you soon.
Okay, chat soon. Take care.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this special episode of the Alberta Roundup. It was so touching to hear from Miss Lewis and to hear a little bit about her story, and hopefully we can have her on again for another positive update in a couple weeks or months. For those of you who want to go find the GoFundMe page right now, you can find that at GiveSendGo.com/GAMM5. Again, that's GiveSendGo.com/GAMM5. Okay, guys, I will see you on Saturday for our usual episode of the Alberta Roundup. Enjoy the rest of your week.